millimeters across might be considered not sensitive. The bacteria are not sensitive to it. They're resistant. And this one, even though it's a smaller zone of inhibition, the chart might say, well, this is a larger molecule, diffuse a lot slower. The bacteria are actually sensitive to this one and resistant to this one. So it's not enough just to eyeball the zone of inhibition. You have to measure it and compare it to a standard chart of known measurements that indicate sensitivity and resistance for each different antibiotic. So on your page that I typed up for you, you have a tiny little chart. But these charts are like, there's like an entire book of these charts for all the different antibiotics. But in general, a larger zone of inhibition would reflect higher sensitivity of the bacteria to that particular antibiotic. So if this is a pure culture of E. coli are probably more sensitive to this antibiotic than they are to that. That's not enough to pick an antibiotic. They also will do an MIC test, a minimum inhibitory concentration test. In the minimum inhibitory concentration test, they're checking for the minimum amount of antibiotic that will inhibit bacteria from growing. Again, in a standardized test, this is an example of increasing concentration of the drug, right? No drug, little bit of drug, little bit of drug, little more drug, little more drug, more drug, more drug. At this amount, it's absolutely clear. This is the same idea that you're doing with your disinfectant experiment. Remember, you took your E. coli toothpicks, you soaked them in disinfectant, and you stuck them in broth. Your control, the E. coli are probably going to grow because they were never exposed to disinfectant. The one that was exposed to disinfectant the longest, you might have killed the most E. coli, and maybe that one will be clear, or at least more clear, I hope. Sometimes it doesn't always work out right. And this is just a slide to show you that an E-test combines the Kirby-Bauer and the MIC test. The Kirby-Bauer disc diffusion test will give you information about what antibiotics are going to work better against a certain type of bacteria. But they don't usually stop with that. They don't just select an antibiotic on the basis of that alone. They also will do an MIC test. Because why would you want to give your patient a high dose of an antibiotic that kind of works when you can give your patient a lower dose of an antibiotic that works really well on that particular infection, right? If I give a high dose, it's going to just give my patient more side effects. So I want to reduce the number of side effects. I don't want to give them a whole lot of side effects, so I want to find the minimum inhibitory concentration of the drugs that will work on that infection, and then select the drug that I can give the lowest dose. However, that's not where it ends. I still have to consider patient factors. Can my patient tolerate this drug? Maybe he's a child and I don't want to give him tetracycline. Or maybe he's got kidney failure and I don't want to give him vancomycin because that'll just kill him, because it will shut his kidneys down completely. Or maybe I need to consider the route of administration. If my patient has a urinary tract infection, how am I going to give that patient a drug that will last until it gets to the bladder to go to work? If I give it orally and it's broken down in the stomach, it's never going to make it to the bladder. What if my patient has a certain infection in the tissue and I need to give an intramuscular injection? Can I make that drug in an intramuscular injection? Does it come in that form? So you have to consider the route of administration. Will the drug actually get to the site of infection without being broken down first? You have to consider patient factors. Can my patient tolerate this drug or not? You also have to consider the minimum inhibitory concentration. So Kirby-Bauer is not where it stops. That's just the beginning. This is just showing you how to do MIC tests. I'm not going to quiz you on that. Routes of administration we talked about. Patient tolerance, contraindications. 30 Bauer disc diffusion. In your book, they call it a diffusion susceptibility test. Minimum hydroid concentration test, minimum bactericidal concentration. There's a whole bunch of tests that they do. Effective route of administration, contraindications, side effects. Well, we talked about this yesterday, remember? Side effect of tetracycline, gray teeth. Side effect of Flagyl, black hairy tongue. In fact, Anita asked me somebody asked me what is it actually, the black hairy stuff? I don't know, you'd have to Google it, I don't remember. Do you know, Colton? What they were? I don't know what, I don't remember. Okay, what's a superinfection? Superinfection is like a secondary infection. So you have one infection, and your immune system is down and out because it's busy fighting that one infection. And then that's an opportunity for another infection to get on you. So let's say I have a yeast infection, and all my skin is cracked and red, and the bacteria can get in the cracks. That would be a secondary infection, or a superinfection. So a superinfection is an infection on top of another infection. So it's like an opportunistic infection that's secondary to the first infection. The first infection created the opportunity for the second infection, which supersedes the first infection, so it's called a superinfection. Lots of different terminology. All right. What? For the black hairy tongue? It's Candida that's
My finding is that a stick of a black hairy tongue usually results from the buildup of dead skin cells on the numerous tiny projections, papillae on the surface of your tongue that contain taste buds.
Yep.
Taste buds.
So it must be oral flora is out of balance. The yeast grew and it must have killed the villi. What are those the little things that take the papillae? Those little cells on your tongue, and that's why it turns black, because the cells on your tongue die. I'm not kissing that person. That's for sure.
That's gotta cause some really bad breath.
What?
That's gotta cause some really bad breath to be able to dead cells in your tongue.
Also, hyperplasia, silicone papillae, so overgrowth.
Oh. Anaphylactic shock, a lot of people ask about that. Do you ever have a patient allergic to sulfur drug or penicillin? You can go into anaphylactic shock, that's in the immune system. What it is your body overreacts. It's an overactive immune response. First time might be a little overreactive. The second time, it's even more overreactive. By the third time, you could go into shock because the immune system overreacts so much and die. Anaphylactic shock will kill you. All right. Development of resistance in populations. Development of a resistant strain of bacteria. If you take your drug and you don't finish it, you kill off the most sensitive or weak ones first. The strongest ones are what are left behind to grow, and those become superbugs. Antibiotic resistance can occur by, what's this one called? Transduction can lead to antibiotic resistance. Biofilms can form, makes them antibiotic resistant. A certain bacteria may produce special enzymes that makes them resistant to the drugs. Here we go. Here's how penicillinase is the enzyme that inactivates penicillin. So penicillinase or transpeptidase, whatever, breaks that lactam ring. I don't know why that one's down there. That's what I told you. I don't like the organization of this book. It's a little bit weird. I think we're almost done. How much longer can this freaking thing be? Okay, how are you going to prevent resistance from happening? First one, don't administer an antibiotic unless it's necessary and helpful. That's a hard call to make. I have to tell you. Many years ago, I was cleaning cat cages at the Humane Society, and I was in the wild cat section, and I usually open the cage, take the cat out, throw him over my shoulder, take out his food bowl, dump it out, wipe the cage, throw the cat back in, fill the food bowl, and go to the next cage. So this time I open the cage, go to grab the cat to pull him out of the cage, and chomp! He bites my hand. I had 4 holes from his fangs. It's like a snake bite, puncture wounds. And I thought, I've been bitten by cats before, it's no big deal. Everything's fine. Go about my day, do my work, go home, have supper, go to... Next day I wake up, my hand is swollen up like a softball. And I go to work, and everybody's like, you know, you maybe ought to go get that looked at. I'm like, I'm fine, it's just swollen, I've been bitten by cats before. And they're like, I don't think so. So I go to the clinic, and he's like, really, lady? He gave me a tetanus shot. Why? It's a puncture wound. Puncture wounds, you can get tetanus, gangrene, botulism, whatever. Gave me a tetanus booster. Also, he put me on an antibiotic. And I'm glad he did. Because what if I hadn't been given the antibiotic, and it got necrotic and worse, and my whole frickin' hand fell off, or I had big scars. So, sometimes it's a hard call to make. When is the antibiotic necessary? Well, in that case, the doctor deemed it necessary because he didn't want to take a chance that it was going to heal on its own. He wanted to prevent that. Here I talk about retarding resistance by make sure you take the full prescription. Make sure your patient takes the full prescription of antibiotic so that this doesn't happen.